inside my brackets here is looking like all of the examples we've done thus far. But the only thing that makes this different is we have this 4 out front. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring it down. You can just, carry it down and just go with it from there. So what I want you to do is see if you can factor this guy. Numbers that multiply to 32, add to 4. That's kind of the process. Multiply to the last one, add to the middle one. And this -4 out front, it's just going to hang along for the ride. So don't get worried by it. It's just going to get dropped down. It's going to end up here. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds. I want you to start by writing down the factors of -32, and then they have to add together to give us +4. So see if you can figure it out. All right, if you've taken a second to think of the factors of 32, this is where knowing your multiplication tables becomes really important. Multiply to -32 and add to +4. Did anybody figure out what the factors were that did that for us? We have 8 and -4. I like that. 8 times -4 is -32, and 8 plus -4 gives me +4. So 8 and 4 is the right thing. Holy guacamole. Everyone was on it. It's really important to watch your signs here for these types of questions because they have to multiply to -32 but add to +4. So we need the +8 and the -4. 8 and 4 is the right combination, but the negative sign on one of them becomes important. Now, we might as well just do our quickie little method here instead of rewriting it all out again. So that -4 that was kind of in front that we pulled out originally, it's just going to get dropped down. So I'm just going to rewrite the -4 here. And I'm always going to have 2 brackets. And my variable here was t. So I'm going to have a t in each of my brackets. And we decided that our factors were +8 and -4. So I'm going to have one that has +8 and one that has a -4. And that is our answer. Now we can check it. So I'll just do a quick little check here. -4, and I said t plus 8, t minus 4. I'm just going to leave the -4 for a second. So I'm going to go t times t is t squared, t times -4 is -4t, t times 8 is 8t, 8 times 4 it's negatives, gives me -32. And is that what I should combine my like terms in the middle here first. -4 t squared plus 4t minus 32. That is what I had from up here. So I'm thinking we're on the right track. I could multiply the -4 out and see if I ended up with what I originally started with as well. But I'm pretty confident in that, so that's good. All right, couple things I want to mention before I set you guys free. And I know I'm finishing a little bit early, and maybe I'm just gonna hang around here on the blackboard. And if you have any questions, you can type them in. But in the course, this factoring stuff is extremely important. It's kind of the foundation for a lot of math moving forward and calculus in general. So it's important that you guys do get some practice. And the learning guide doesn't have a ton of questions on factoring, unfortunately. So what I've done is I've put in 2 sort of extra practice sheets. Now all I've done is taken them from the kind of in-course lessons, so the ones that are built into the course. I've just downloaded the worksheet here. So we have Unit 4, Factoring Extra Practice, and Lesson 5, Factoring Trinomials Extra Practice. So the one we did today was this trinomial stuff. This is Lesson 5 we're doing right now. There is an extra practice sheet for the beginning stuff as well, because you can't really do one without the other. So this extra practice and this extra practice, I'm going to insist that you guys do these two sheets because they are really important to kind of expose you guys to lots of variety of questions. If you just do the learning guide, you will not see any of the sorts of questions you'll see on the kind of like provincial exam or kind of the test. There's so many different types of questions involving the factoring, and it's really important that you guys are really good at it. So okay, let's go with this. The first sheet, Lesson 4, the Factoring Extra Practice, I'm not going to get you guys to hand that in, but Factoring Trinomials Extra Practice, I want you guys to hand in the sheet with the learning guide as well. So let's just take a quick little gander at it here. How many questions? It's a bit. Some of them are really similar in terms of what they look like. So you can see in the solutions here, I forget who asked originally, but there's ones that like this one that says 1D, not possible. So when you get to that question, it turns out that you just simply can't factor it. There just aren't two numbers that multiply to the last and add to the middle. It just doesn't happen. So if that ever happens, and it will happen from time to time, you can just write can't factor and move on. You can see that very few of them won't be able to be factored, but it is a reality of it. So not everything can be factored. Avery, yes, you guys are learning the exact same stuff as every other student in Math 10. Remember, the provincial exam is made by the province, so all the math teachers say, okay, this is what you need to know going into the provincial, and these are the types of questions that will be on the provincial. So we're teaching you the curriculum, and you end up with every kid in Math 10 doing the same course. The examples might be different. Some students use different textbooks. There's a couple different Math 10 textbooks that you can use, but essentially at the end of the day, it's all the same stuff. So the Factoring Trinomials Extra Practice, it's really important that you guys go through that. And I know it is a bit of work, but it's good practice because this stuff is really important. So it's 10:10. There's about 10 minutes left. I don't really have a ton of other things I want to go through, so maybe I'll just call it quits there. But in the next 10 minutes, I'd really like it if you guys went and looked at that extra practice and maybe started a few of those questions. Does anybody have any questions about anything midterm related, course related, anything in general? Give you guys a second to do that. Like I was saying before, we are on Lesson 5 today. Lessons 6 and 7 are pretty straightforward. They don't get terribly difficult. That's a good question, Taylor, thanks. Ava and Taylor, both on the same page. So yeah, we have a couple more days. So we'll have class, we don't have class tomorrow, but Thursday and then Monday. And then we'll have the test either on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. So that gives you a week's notice on that test. Learning guide, where are we up to now? I'll just kind of scroll back up a little bit. All of this algebra tile stuff, you should be able to do now. Just do your best with it. I can answer questions from it next day. I know I didn't spend a ton of time talking about algebra tiles, but you should be okay with most of it now. So factors and multiples, we've done all that. Factoring polynomials, we should be good up to there. And then I said Lesson 4 and then Lesson 5. So factoring simple trinomials is what we've done today. You can see that the questions break it down for you. So product and sum, just in a little table. I didn't draw a table, but you could. Factor. So I think we're up to here. Yep, the long method. So this is lesson 6 now, moving on. We haven't got there yet. So end of lesson 5 is on page 12, just above long method. And you can see what I mean. There's only, a couple questions for these factoring type things. And it's just not enough because they don't really expose you guys to the types of questions you're going to encounter. Wait a second, I might have lied to you. I just did. You should be good up to here. I jumped the gun a little bit. So the bottom of page 11. This is the end of lesson 5 right here. The next few questions you won't be able to do until you've done lesson 6. So you should go up to page 11 now. You should be done up to page 11. Abby just asked this question, and I have some time, so let's go ahead and do it. First, let's maybe just look at A. When we factor something, we say, what's common to these things? And in this case, A, what's common to both those is 6, and I can get at least 3 A's out. So I can pull out a 6 and A cubed. Okay. What am I left with? Well, 6 times 4 gives me 24, and A to the power of 3 times A to the power of 3 gives me A to the power of 6. And 6 times negative 1 gives me negative 6, and A cubed times A to negative 1 gives me that. So there's the first one. 6A cubed was common to both. Letter C I put a star next to because it's a bit of a tricky one. What is common to both of these terms? And when I say both of these terms, what I'm referring to is this term here, there's my first term, and this term here, my second term. You can see my terms are separated by this negative sign, just like they were up here. So it's this exact same process as letter A, except it just looks a little bit uglier. So what's common? What's the same in each of those blue circles? Well, what is the same is this 3x minus 1. So I have a 3x minus 1 here, and I have a 3x minus 1 here. So if it's the same, I'm going to pull it out. So I have 3x minus 1 in both terms. In my first term here, what's left? If I have a 3x minus 1, what's left? Well, I have this 4x. And in my second term here, if I pull out a 3x minus 1, what's left? Well, I just have a minus 1 now. Because if I take everything out, there's just 1 left. So that is how that thing factors. There's a few examples of that in the extra practice from lesson 4 as well. There's a whole question that has like 5 or 6 examples, just exactly the same as this. So this is a difficult example. This is kind of hard. Yeah, so that's that guy. Do you want 3D? Is that what you meant there, Ava? You put 4, but I assume you meant 3. Yeah, all right. I have a feeling they've broken it down into 2x. What's that going to leave? X plus 2. So they've done the same thing, kind of like what I did with the examples in class today. Now, there's no way you would really know to do this unless you saw what I did today. So if you kind of got here and you're like, well, this is crazy. Let's break it into 2 halves. And we'll just kind of do it as 2 separate questions. What's common to the first 2 terms? I have this 2x squared and then 4x. And then here I have 3xy and 6y. What's common to each of those? Well, in the first one, what's common is going to be a 2 and an x, because both the terms have a 2, both terms have an x. So what am I left with? An x and a 2. And then what's common to my second two terms here is a 3y. So I'm left with x plus 2. Now this question looks almost the same as the question we just did. So what's common to both of these things now? Well, I have this x plus 2 here. I have an x plus 2 here. So I'm going to pull out x plus 2, and I'm left with a positive 2x and a positive 3y. Now that's a tough question. There's kind of no way you would just know to break it into two pieces right away. But if we looked at the question as it was written, and I look at it and I say, well, I don't have any number that's common, 2, a 4, a 3, and a 6. There's nothing common to 2, 4, and 3, and 6. And then you think, well, maybe I can pull out an x. But there's x here, an x here, but I don't have an x here. So I can't pull out an x. So it just really looks like there's nothing you can do with this thing initially. But if you break it into two parts and deal with the first half separately from the second half, you should be able to end up with the answer. Now, that's a tough question. If I saw that on a provincial exam, I would definitely be caught off guard by it. And it's only through a bunch of practice will you be able to kind of recognize how this works. And doing the next section will actually help a little bit more as well. So we're going to deal with more questions like this in the next section. So I'm going to sign off there. I have a feeling there'll be a ton of questions next day, which is great because this factoring stuff is tricky and every question's a little bit different. So I'll definitely spend some time answering questions next day. So make sure if you are kind of always behind, this is a really important day for you to look at this extra practice and look at the questions from the learning guide and get this stuff done so you can ask questions next day. So you guys have, I won't see you tomorrow, but I will see you on Thursday. So you have a little bit extra time to get this stuff done. Please look at it. If at the very least you don't understand anything, just try one or two questions, as many as you can, as long as you've looked at it. Come with questions next day. So that's it for me for now. And hopefully you guys have a good Remembrance Day if you choose to go to ceremony or whatever you like to do. And we'll see you again on Thursday. Bye-bye.